So welcome. Thank you so much for carving out the time to be here. I know as parents, you have so much more to do than you can possibly get done. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy life to get here and to think about parenting. I'm so pleased you're here. And I really hope that you're going to come away from this webinar with some fresh ideas that you can take away about how to get your child to listen without yelling, timeouts, or bargaining. So we've got a whole load of parents who've registered today. I think last I heard a couple of days ago, there was almost 2,000 people registered. So I just want to give folks a chance to join and settle in. And whilst I'm doing that, whilst people are arriving, I'll tell you a little bit more about hand-in-hand parenting. So Hand-in-Hand Parenting is an international not-for-profit organization, and we have instructors all around the world, including myself and Kathy Gordon, who's here helping me on the tech today. Hand-in-Hand Parenting was founded in 1989 under the name of Parents Leader Institute by Patty Whitfler. And she founded it after many thousands of hours of real life experience working with parents and children. Like, it's based on in the field experience. And we have so many ways that we support parents. So there are a whole load of free resources, such as articles and audios and videos on our website. So just go and check out our website, go and find those free resources. And we also have a new Parent Club podcast. It has just been launched. I really encourage you to check that out. It is absolutely fantastic. It is 100% pure hand-in-hand parenting, and you get to meet Kathy and Emily, who are mentors in our Parent Club, and they just pour in their really good wisdom into those podcast episodes. So go and check them out. We also have our core Listening to Children booklets and our book Listen, which walk you in detail through our approach. They give you a really deep dive into our approach. And we've also got a whole load of services we offer. So we offer one-on-one support through consultations. We have self-guided classes. We have instructor classes, classes for professionals such as therapists and teachers. We have a whole bunch of services, and there'll be one that really suits you, that's just right for you. And we love to bring parents together. So we do that in our classes, but we also have a free Hand-in-Hand Parenting community Facebook group, which you're welcome to join so that you can meet like-minded parents and get to know our approach a little bit better. And then there is our absolutely amazing membership program, the Parent Club. Kathy Gordon, who's here today with me, is one of the mentors on that. It's an amazing service. I think it's incredible value for money. Like, it is incredible value for money. You get personal coaching, and I will tell you more about that at the end of this webinar. So you can find all of these resources on the Hand-in-Hand website, which is handinhandparenting.org. And our mission is to support parents. Like, we want to give parents the insights and skills they need that allows each child to thrive. Like, that's our mission. And we do that through our listening tools. We have 4 parent to child listening tools, and they are called Special Time, Setting Limits, Stay Listening, and Play Listening. And we have one parent to parent support tool, which is called Listening Partnerships. And you will hear me talk more about these in this masterclass. So at Hand-in-Hand Parenting, our vision is a world that really supports the difficult work of parenting. Parenting is hard, and parents need support. And our vision is that parents get that support so that we can foster meaningful personal connections that move us towards a sustainable and peaceful world. So thank you once again for joining this webinar on how to get your child to listen without yelling, timeouts, and bargaining. And I'd just like to really briefly introduce myself. My name is Rachel Schofield. I have been with Hand-in-Hand since 2007, when my eldest boy was very little, a baby. And I'm an instructor, and I'm also a professional member of the Australian Association of Family Therapists. I'm the mum of 2 boys. I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I live in Australia on the far south coast of New South Wales. And I am just forever grateful that I stumbled across Hand-in-Hand Parenting. My family is so much better off because of it. So if you would like to learn more about me, you can find my instructor bio on the Hand in Hand website. So a big warm welcome to all of you. I know that as a parent, you care so much. You absolutely want the best for your children, and you are always doing your best. And it's not your fault you struggle. Like, we all struggle as parents, and it's not our fault. We face real challenges and real difficulties, and we're not to blame for these. Society does not support parents well. And we're currently living in in really challenging times. There's been the pandemic, there's heat waves, floods, inflation, fires, global tension and conflict. All of this just really adds a layer of just how challenging parenting is at the moment. So I want to start off by reminding you that you are good to the core. You are absolutely good to the core, and so are your children, like even when things go pear-shaped, even on those difficult days. And I really hope today that is going to help you with the challenge of getting your kids to listen without yelling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a little bit on the topic. There'll then be a Q&A, so you can pop questions in the Q&A thing on the webinar. Pop your questions in there, and after I've finished speaking, I will get to those questions. And at the end, I will tell you a little bit more about how you can join our parent club. Great. Okay, let's dive in. So getting your child to listen is essentially about getting your child to do something or stopping them from doing something. Like, that's usually what's going on. And so getting your child to listen is really about holding boundaries with your child. And as parents, I think this is perhaps one of the biggest and most common struggles that we have. It's like around holding limits. I think every single parent finds it hard. It's like, we didn't sign up to the job of parenting thinking kind of, whoopee, I'm going to get to set limits with my child every single day. Like, that isn't what we were after. And yet it is what we have to do. We have to set limits with our child, sometimes many times a day. It's a really important part of our job description as a parent. And so we're in this situation of having to set limits. We're, trying to get our child to do something, trying to stop them from doing something. And we try really hard to be good parents. We try really hard to be respectful. And so we try all sorts of different strategies to get our child to listen. Like, we might try to reason with them. Like, I need you to put your jumper on because it's cold. Like, we try to reason with them. Or we might find ourselves bargaining with them. Okay, if you tidy up your room, you can have some screen time. And we give some sort of like bargain. And then when we run out of tricks, like, that's when we find ourselves issuing timeouts or yelling. We just don't know what else to do, and out it comes. And none of these strategies feel great. They're very frustrating because they don't work well. And so we struggle. That's where we fall into the struggle. And really, we struggle because, in part, because we don't understand why our child isn't listening. And that is so frustrating. Like, there we are being really respectful, really kind, and they're just not listening to us. And this feels really annoying. So I will explain to you like what's going on when your child isn't listening, so you can understand what's happening. And another reason we struggle is that we don't know what else to do. We're kind of caught in this loop. We're caught in this loop where, we try to be respectful, and then we kind of lose it and yell at our kid, but we don't have any other options. Like, what else are we meant to do? It's not working, but we don't have another option. So today I will share with you strategies, like step-by-step strategies of what else you can do so that your kids will cooperate and listen to you. All right. So why is it that our kids are not listening to us? Like, what's going on? So I think there are 3 reasons, and this is what I'm going to cover as I talk today. So the first reason is that our child isn't listening. The first reason that our child isn't listening is that it's to do with connection. It's to do with connection. So I'm going to dive into that now. So children want and need to feel connected. It is literally as important as food, sleep, and air. And in general, we don't tend to think of it that way. In general, we tend to think about it as like icing on the cake. Nice if you can get it. But actually, it's completely vital. It's really, really important. And just to kind of make it clear how important it is, that we only have to think about the harrowing stories that we have all heard about orphanages, overcrowded orphanages around the world, where children fail to thrive. It's like, even though their physical needs are cared for, their emotional need for connection was not being cared for, not being met. And so they died from lack of love. Like, the connection is absolutely vital to a child. And it's like, our child is hardwired for connection. We're social beings. We need connection. And with our child, it's like that they're constantly scanning for connection in their mind. It's a little bit like they have a radar in their mind that is just checking, is there someone out there that's got attention for me? Is there someone out there who is thinking about me, who's going to keep me safe from the wolves? And if our child can latch on to a sense of connection, it signals to the rest of the brain they can relax. It's like, children innately know that they need an adult to keep them safe. They innately know that they are completely vulnerable. So if they can latch on to a sense of connection, they know they're safe. And so their whole body relaxes. It's like, oh, great, there's someone here looking after me. Like, there's someone here taking care. Their body relaxes. And when that happens, their whole brain can function fully. Like, they can make use of their whole brain, and they can make decisions, and they can be cooperative, and they can listen to our requests. That they're easygoing and they're flexible. And when a child feels safe and connected, that's when they'll be kind to their sibling. That's when they'll go to bed easily. That's when they'll jump into their car seat without a fuss. Like, it's all just really easy. But when a child can't latch on to a sense of connection, when that doesn't happen, it sends an alarm signal to the mind. It's like, there's no one here. Like, I'm in danger. Like, there's no one here. And it's sort of a danger signal. And the mind goes into an emergency mode. And then the child cannot think. Like, they literally cannot think. Like, their brain isn't fully functioning. It's like the thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the bit behind the forehead, is offline. And they're not able to fully function. And that's when our child starts to do rigid, difficult behavior that doesn't work. So that's when they might lash out at their sibling. That's when they procrastinate about going to bed, or they point blank refuse to get into a car seat. Like, that's when they do these difficult things. So we can't save our children from disconnection. Like, that's just not possible. Like, it happens many, many times a day, and it's not their fault. It's not our fault. It's really just a part of life, and that's okay. It's just, that's what goes on. But when a child feels disconnected, they are far less likely to listen to us, and they're far less likely to do what we want them to do. And if you think about it, it's the same for us adults. Like, when we don't feel close to someone, we're less likely to cooperate with them. So if someone we feel close to, someone we love, asks us to do something, we're going to be willing and open to doing that thing. Like, we want to cooperate. But if someone we don't feel so close to, or we feel tension with, asks us to do something, we're going to be more resistant to it. We just don't feel like being so cooperative. It's just kind of this innate thing that we have as humans. So building connection between you and your child is an absolutely key step in getting more cooperation and getting your child to listen. It's like a basic building block of getting your child to listen more. So if at the moment it feels like your child never listens to you, it's a sign to reach in with more connection. And the first step is to, it's really about warming up the relationship. And the listening tool that we have that is a really, it's just an amazingly powerful, effective way to build connection and safety, is special time. And sometimes simply doing regular special time is enough to make your child listen more. Like, just simply that act of doing more special time. it tops up their sense of connection, they feel safe, and their mind will function really, really well. So I'll just tell you a little bit, like a quick snapshot of how you do how you do special time. We have lots of resources on it if you want to kind of dive into it deeper. But special time is it's one-on-one time with your child. And the main point of it is that you are going to pour your love into your child for this little period of time. So you name it, you call it special time. You don't have to call it special time, but you call it something. And you decide how long it's going to be. So it might be 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. It's, a short period of time. You name it and you set a date. You let your child know ahead of time that they're going to have special time. So it might be as simple as like, hey, after breakfast, we'll have special time for 10 minutes and I'll do whatever it is that you want to do. And you use a timer, you pop the timer on so that you're not clock watching and you're not distracted by the time. And then you just do whatever it is that your child wants to do. You follow their lead. You just let them take charge. It's like you're handing the reins of the relationship over to your child for 10 minutes. And your main job is to delight in them, to be really, really pleased with whatever it is they're doing. And they just get to soak up your love. And you want to let go of your agenda. So this is not the moment for teaching. This is not the moment for fixing things or solving problems for them. You just let them decide whether or not they want your help. And when the timers goes off, that's the end of special time. And you can expect feelings to bubble up at the end. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But basically what's happening is as you give this one-on-one time to your child, they're feeling safe. They're feeling safe. And sometimes when you feel safe, hard feelings that we're holding inside will bubble up. So just be aware of that. And I'm going to kind of talk more about that later on. But this is a really powerful way of warming up the relationship with your child and getting more cooperation. It's like you're getting the love that you have in your heart landing in your child in a way that they can really, really feel it. So I'm just going to share a little story with you about how bringing in special time made a huge difference for one mom in getting her child to listen. So this mom had a 3-year-old son, and her son was not listening to her. Like, she would regularly ask him to do things and he would just carry on as if she had said nothing. And he also had going on at the same time that he wanted to do absolutely nothing for himself. Like he was capable of getting dressed, but he would want her to dress him, and he would refuse to walk anywhere, even short distances. He'd want her to pick him up. So he kind of had these two things going on. And so she decided she'd start doing regular special time, like so that she'd start to warm up the relationship. And one time, so she'd been doing this for a while, she'd been doing regular special time, and then one special time her son decided he was going to be daddy. He was going to role play being daddy. He was kind of doing this role reversal thing. And so he was daddy, and he got his soft toy and decided that his favorite soft toy was going to go in the pushchair, in the stroller, in the pram. That's got different words in different countries, hasn't it? Anyway, in the pushchair. And he was going to walk his toy to the park. Now, this kid had never walked anywhere voluntarily for a really long time. So his mum was completely blown away that he was doing this in special time. And she'd put the timer on for 20 minutes. It was a 20-minute special time, and they had time to go to the park, and so which was just around the corner. And he pushed his soft toy all the way to the park, and they played at the park. And his mum was just delighted. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is what he did in special time. That evening, when it was bedtime, she said, okay, it's time for bed. Go and put your pajamas on. And normally he would just be ignoring her, like carrying on playing, not as if she'd said nothing. He got up, he went to his bedroom, he put his pajamas on, and he got through the whole bedtime routine without any fuss. He just did what was needed. And it was like this build up of special time, and that one particular special time in particular really helped that boy feel topped up with connection. Like he felt absolutely topped up with love and connection. And he'd also been able to use special time to process an issue he was working on. Like he was, this sticky issue he had about doing things for himself. He'd like done that in his special time, and kids will do that. If you do regular special time, they will start to work on issues, and they'll start to work on things that they're afraid of. And that's what this boy had done. So feeling disconnected is a really key reason that our children don't listen, but it's not the only one. So next, I'm gonna dive into the second one. The second reason that our children don't listen to us is because they are filled with emotional tension, not attention. Okay, so let's explain what's going on there. So our brain records everything that happens to us along with the emotional experience of that event. And many things don't take much processing, like today it's sunny or the next day it's rainy, but other things land so much harder in kids. And it can be small things, like for a little baby, like I can think of both my boys when they were little. If the wind blew on their face, it would really upset them. Like they were frightened by the wind. It's like, it's just the wind. There's like nothing wrong with it, but it was very frightening for them, and they would cry and be upset. Or it might be, just things that are ordinary to us, like a barking dog or a loud noise, like can be upsetting to a little baby. Or it might be bigger things like medical procedures, separation from parents, like bigger things like that can be really hard for a child to process. And they can kind of land hard in a child's mind. They can sort of feel like a real hurt. So I'm just going to share with you a little story about my oldest son, who, when he was almost 2 years old, we went back to Britain and we visited his Scottish grandmother. And his Scottish grandmother had this really cranky old Highland Terrier dog, and it was known that this dog was cranky, and so she knew she had to keep him on a lead in the house the whole time whilst we were staying there, whilst my son was there. Like, this dog could not be trusted. And then one day someone let go of the lead, and sure enough, the dog went and jumped up on my son, like went to attack him. And my partner, everyone was scared. My son was scared. My partner was scared. And my partner kind of dived on the dog to protect my son. And my son was upset. And he was actually physically unharmed. Like, my partner got there in time and he was physically fine, but he was very, very scared. And up until this point, he had loved dogs. He had been really happy with dogs. He would stroke dogs when we went out. He really liked dogs. But the next day we went to the park and we bumped into a Labrador. It's like Labradors, they're kind of like the most, I don't know, gentle, beautiful dogs. And this Labrador dog was just standing there, minding his own business. And my son was terrified. Like, there was nothing frightening about this dog, but he was terrified and he wanted me to pick him up, and he was really scared. And what was happening was the emotional hurt from the day before was bubbling up. It was like bubbling up, and it wasn't about the current situation. It was about what had happened the day before, this unprocessed hurt that hadn't been processed. So even though the current situation was safe, he had a whole load of big feelings got tripped up. And it's like all our children have this happening. All our children, it's like they carry emotional backpacks where they're collecting hurts. They're collecting hurts that haven't been processed, and they kind of carry it around. And if something reminds them of one of these hurts that they're carrying in a backpack, that hurt will bubble up to the surface, like waiting to be processed. So something, if something from the past that felt disconnected and felt unsafe gets reminded of, like, that difficult times will come up again. And that's why kids have really big feelings over little things, is because something in their backpacks getting kind of pulled up to the surface. And when a child feels hurt, and when they feel disconnected, which is what I was talking about before, their brain is flooded with feelings and they can't think. That, you know, their brain is offline. And a child doesn't always look like they can't think. They kind of might look like they're okay. It's like not obvious that there are feelings swamping their mind, but their behavior lets you know that they've got emotional tension getting in the way. Like they do unworkable things, and that is why, like, reasoning with your child doesn't work, because if they can't access their thinking mind, the reasoning part of their mind, reasoning isn't going to work. Like they cannot get to think. So you're trying to get your child to listen by giving explanations and be respectful, but they just cannot process that. Like, it's going nowhere because they're swamped with emotional tension. So when a child feels disconnected or upset, they lose a sense of safety, and then kind of two things happen. Like, that child feels hurt, like the feeling might be different depending on the situation. They might feel lonely, sad, scared, ashamed, angry, worried, but some kind of feeling goes in, and then the child can't think. They lose access to their thinking mind. And then one of two things happens. Either the child starts to release those emotions, they start to cry or tremble or rage, or their behavior goes off track and they do unworkable, difficult, antisocial things. And that's when they refuse to do the thing that we're asking them to do, or they ignore, point blank, ignore our requests. It's because they've kind of got these feelings trapped inside. So when a child's feeling this way, we can help them by being with them as they offload the hurt, as they offload that emotional tension. And if we allow them just to move all the way through that feeling, they will come out the other side in so much better shape. Like, they'll be able to think well again. They will just come out feeling so much better. And we can kind of think of this as like a hurt and recovery sequence. Like, our child got hurt, and the recovery is then moving through those feelings, having a good cry, raging their way through the upset. So I'm just going to share another little story with you about my eldest son. I have a lot of stories about him because he's the one I did so much learning with. So when he was 18 months old, we went on a camping holiday. And in the morning, we'd gone to a playground, and he had tripped up and face planted flat on his face. It must have really hurt. It must have really, really hurt. And he didn't cry at the time. And I was like, oh, that's kind of curious. That must have really hurt. He didn't cry. Later that day, we were going to go down the beach, and he wanted to go down the beach. And I'm like, okay, we need to put your sunscreen on. And he did not want to have his sunscreen put on. He was sat on my lap, and I had this blob of sunscreen on my hand. And I'm like, I need to put the sunscreen on. And he was pushing my hand away. And one of the reasons I remember it, that he was crying really hard at this point. He was crying hard and saying no and pushing my hand away. And I remember it because it was so public. We were like in this campsite, and it felt like it was so noisy, his crying and his upset. And I felt really self-conscious of what was going on. And he cried big, fat tears. And it went on for a good half hour. And halfway into this cry, he looked right at me, and he pointed at his chin, and he said, "Kiss me." And I was blown away, because it was just like, oh my God, like, that's from this morning when he landed and he like had hurt his chin. Like, that's what he's crying about. He's not crying about the sunscreen. He's crying about his chin. And he got to the end of the cry, and he was happy for me to put the sunscreen on, and we went down the beach, and we had a really nice afternoon at the beach. What I love about that story is it showed to me, like, what I learned was that, really learned and saw that the crying was not the hurt. The hurt had got in there in the morning when he'd hurt himself at the playground. The crying was him healing, was him recovering from that hurt. Like, it was making him feel better. So when our child refuses to listen, our child's connection cup might be empty, like that's one thing that might be going on, and or their emotional backpack is just overflowing with hurt feelings. So hopefully even just knowing this information will ease some of the frustration that you currently feel. Like kind of your child is not out to get you. They're not just being annoying on purpose. They have this going on emotionally for them. They feel disconnected and or hurt. Like that's why they're not listening. So what do you do? So you're gonna, if you warm the relationship by building connection, just doing that will bring more listening, like your child will listen more, but you're still going to have times where your child doesn't listen because of these emotional hurts. So it's good to remember that they cannot think and that they've lost their sense of connection and that they're holding emotional tension. And so when they're not listening, they need your help. Like that's what they need, your help. And yeah, so if you think of it as a signal for help, think of it as like your child saying something like, hey, mom, dad, I don't feel so good. Can you help? They need your connection. They need a chance to heal from the hurts that are kind of clogging their mind at that moment. And if you help them that way, they'll be able to get back to their good selves and they'll be able to find a way to cooperate and do the thing that's needed. So I'll just run you through like how we recommend doing that at Hand in Hand Parenting. So we have this 3-step method, which we call setting limits, and which goes listen, limit, listen. So the first step is listen. You know, unless there's an immediate sort of safety issue, like you go and tend to the safety issue. But other than that, just pause for a moment before you kind of move in to set a limit. Like, do you have realistic expectations? Sometimes we're kind of asking our child to do something that's completely unrealistic. You know, for example, maybe we've been chatting to our friend on the phone, our 3-year-old, and we've been on the phone for 20 minutes. Like that's not, 3-year-olds will have a really hard time not, you know, being able to wait whilst you chat to your friend on the phone. So have you got realistic expectations? Is it you that's off track? Sometimes it's us that's off track, not our child. Sometimes we're the one that's not feeling so good and we kind of put it on our child and it's not really them. So just check in about that. And then when you're trying to get your kid to do something, like just think about the timing. Like, is this a good moment? Are they engrossed in something? Like, you know, what, you just think about it from their point of view, like what's going on. So just have a pause and a little think about what's going on. The second step is limit, is to bring the limit. Now, what's really important here is that you don't crawl across the room. Like we are all so tempted to do that. Hey, it's time for dinner. It's really good to go up to your child, come close to them. If your child's off track, like if they've not responded to your request, it's a sign that their brain's not functioning properly. So they actually, they can probably just about hear your words, but it's really hard for them to process and act on those words. So come in close, come in really close, and your key bit is to come in with connection and warmth. Like that's really the starting place. So you might come in, maybe your kid's been drawing on the wall and you don't want them to be drawing on the wall and you've asked them not to, but they're not doing anything. You come close and you pop your hand on their hand and you say, I can't let you draw on the wall. Or I need you to get off the iPad. Or I need you to pack away your toys. But you come in close and, you know, you might just touch them. And if they're doing something you need to stop doing, you touch the offending limb to kind of physically stop them. But you're coming in with warmth, you're coming in with closeness. And you wait. Like the next bit is you just wait. And if you wait, you're more than likely going to get some upset coming up. It might be anger. Your child might be really angry. I don't want to get off the iPad. Like, or it might be tears. But whatever the feeling is that comes up, you listen. So this is the third step, listen. You listen to that upset. And what your child is doing is freeing themselves from the hurt that's clogging their mind. You want to offer eye contact. That's not the same as insisting upon eye contact. You're just there with eye contact. Very often kids, like they'll be crying and then they'll just have a little kind of moment to look up and check you're still there, and then they'll go back to their crying. So you're like off eye contact and you listen, and you're like their anchor. You're anchoring them whilst they go through the stormy sea of feeling really upset. You keep them safe, you keep yourself safe, and you hold the limit. And you remember that the emotions are not the hurt, like you being there, listening to them as they get to release that emotional tension, that is healing. So that's our tool, setting limits in a nutshell. And it works so well at getting your child to listen to you. It works really well because it's not a power play. Like yelling's a power play where we intimidate our child and we frightened our child into doing something. And that actually shuts down their mind. Like it kind of stops them thinking very well and it makes them feel afraid. And it's not a punishment, like time out is a punishment, and that hurts a child. And even consequences are a kind of form of punishment, which emotionally hurt a child, which makes our child feel more distant from us. And so remember earlier on, I've been talking about connection, how important it is. Like if it's doing that, we're going in the opposite direction when we're using punishments, and it makes our child find it harder to think well. And when they can't think well, they tend not to listen to us. And it's also not trying to get our child to speak reasonably or be reasonable when they can't access their thinking mind. So we're not trying to get them to do something that's not possible for them to do in that moment. But what it is a really great way of helping our child to heal from the feelings that are the cause of them not listening to us. And it actually helps them like connect with themselves and their feelings. Like that's what it's doing. You're kind of getting them to connect in with how they're actually feeling. So I hope that's helpful. What I want to touch upon as well, like once you've had a go at setting limits that way, you might like to set limits playfully. You can do this playfully too. And this can be such a wonderful kind of counter to being this serious parent that we so often are. So I'm just going to run over this really quickly. And if you are interested in this, you can go and find more resources on our website, or through our services. So you can be playful. And the two key things to do when you're trying to be playful around limits is to make sure your child has the powerful position and that you follow their laughter. Like the laughter is a form of healing emotions and emotional release. So and the thing that it's doing is it's really building connection with you. Like if you come in playfully, it's building connection with you. And sometimes just coming in playfully with those two things of your child being powerful and following their laughter, sometimes that's enough to top up their connection cup so that they can then cooperate. They can do the thing that you're wanting them to do. And sometimes it doesn't, but when it doesn't, it's still building safety and connection. So I'm just going to share with you a little story about how that can work. So one mum I know, her 4-year-old was hitting, kicking, pinching and grabbing their dog, and it had got really bad. And there was one day in particular where she felt she could not leave the dog alone, like the dog was not safe. Her son would be there in a moment doing something to the dog. And she had spent the day kind of trying to gently set limits in the way I've just described, going, no, I'm not going to let you hit the dog. And, you can't hit the dog. But nothing really shifted. Like kind of within a couple of minutes, he'd be back trying to pinch the dog or something. And so she shifted gears and tried to do this playful thing. And so before long, her son went for the dog again, and she zoomed in and she picked him up and she put him on her shoulder, and she went around the house skipping and singing. Well, not exactly skipping, but, dancing around the house with her son over her shoulder. No hitting, no hitting. We don't hit in this house. And her son laughed and laughed and laughed, and he asked her to sing this more and more, and so she was singing it more and more, and he really enjoyed it. And she put him down, and for a little while he didn't hit the dog, but after about 10 minutes he went back and he hit the dog again, and she got in there and touched his hand and said, no, I can't let you hit the dog. And this time, because she'd reached in with this playful warmth and connection, emotions came to the surface. Like the safety was built with all that playfulness. And first of all, he was angry. And she stayed with him, anchored him through that. And then tears came and he had a good cry. And once he'd finished, he'd got all the way through those tears. He felt so much better. He felt so much better. And the rest of the afternoon was fine. And she didn't have another incident with the dog. So we've covered 2 reasons why kids don't listen. 1, they feel disconnected. 2, they're holding emotional tension. The 3rd reason, and I'm really sorry, Kathy, I've taking a little bit more time than I've got a little bit left, but I'm going to keep going. So the 3rd reason is that the 3rd reason our children don't listen is that we are filled with emotional tension. So one thing, just sort of a nuance on like getting your child to listen through this limit setting thing and setting limits, is I really want you to focus on yourself, on your actions and how you're doing, rather than your child and the fact that they're not listening or not doing what you want. Like if we focus on the end goal, if we focus too much on our child and what they're doing, we bring an incredible amount of tension and agenda to the situation, and that makes it feel less connected. So we really need to focus on ourselves, so that, because what's important is that we have warm, calm confidence when we bring our limit, when we come to the situation. And without that warmth, we can be frightening to our child. And without the confidence, we kind of lack conviction that kind of lessens the safety of this bringing the limit. And without the calm, we're triggered emotionally and not able to support our child. So I spend a lot of time supporting parents like get to that finding confidence in their limit setting. It's a really key piece. And I know if you're feeling like, oh, I'm not very confident setting limits, which a lot of parents feel like, I know you can get there too. So just really briefly, I'm going to talk about that last piece of like, we're triggered. Like sometimes that's what's going on. Sometimes, and what's going on there is that we also have an emotional backpack, our own emotional backpack full of hurts. And our children can really, really easily step upon our sore spots. And when they do, that's one reason that we might find ourselves yelling or treating our child in ways we don't want to be treating when we're trying to get them to listen to us. And so at hand-in-hand parenting, what we recommend and what we encourage parents to do is to set up a listening exchange with another parent. We call this listening partnerships. And what we want parents to do is have time so that they can process and release their emotional hurts in a safe space rather than dumping that on our child. So you can find out more about listening partnerships on our website, and our parent club is an absolutely fantastic place to find a listening partner where you can practice this listening exchange process. It's a really good place because the mentors there can help you find a listening partner, and they can also guide you and give you experience on the live calls in the parent club about how this listening time works. So I'm pretty much at the end of what I wanted to cover. I have covered so much. If you have questions, please pop them in the Q&A box. But I would love for you to kind of challenge yourself over the next week, like see if you can do some special time with your child to kind of warm up the relationship. See if you can use our setting limits, listen, limit, listen. Next time you want your child to listen and they're not cooperating, and just go and experiment and do consider getting yourself a listening partner. Great. I'm going to have a look at the Q&A box and see what we've got. Okay, and great. Thank you, Kathy, so much for getting in and answering some of those questions. So I have a question here from Virtue. I really hope I said your name right. They say, sometimes it's not safe for our children to go through upset. My children are not white, and them experiencing feelings isn't okay in many places outside our home. Sometimes it's not possible to just take them out of the situation. How to manage that? And we don't always have time to hold space for the cry. What to do then? Child freaks out when special alarm goes off. What to do? Okay, really great question. So it's absolutely true, Virgie, that you know, there are certain social situations where it may not be great for our children to have a really big upset. I don't know how old your children are, so a little bit depends on the age. If your children are very young, well, either actually anyway, the best you can do is you listen as much as you can when you're at home. Like, you listen to their upset when they're at home as much as you can, and then before you go out, you want to get into a frame of mind of anticipating, we're going out, these are things my children might be upset about, topping them up with connection before you go out, and listening as much as you can when you're at home, and making time for the upset, because the more topped up with connection and the more drained the emotional backpack is of stored hurts, the longer they'll be able to last outside. And then if you're so you do that to minimize the amount that they will need to offload in public. And then all you can do, it's like, this is a situation where you can't use that tool, like you can't do that. So all you're left with is distraction. You just have to distract your child and do whatever it is you can do to get through that moment. And that's okay. You can listen to their feelings at another time. Like, that's what you can do. So thanks for the question. Great question. Okay. And with the special alarm going off, that's okay. Like, there are a couple of things that might be going on there. So that's really common, that a child will be upset when special time goes off, and what it's letting you know is it's actually worked really well. Like, you've done the special time, it's built this safety and connection, and your child just feels heartbroken that special time is over. But what that is a whole load of feelings in their emotional backpack that are getting cleared out. Like, it's really helpful. That special time made it safe for your child to say, hey, here are some yucky feelings. Here are some really yucky feelings that I don't feel good about. You know, and can you listen to them? It feels like I can bring them up. And they will feel so much better once they've got those feelings out. So don't worry about the fact that that's happening. Just plan for it. Know that your child's going to feel upset at the end of special time, and know that what you are doing is really helpful. You're helping them clear out all that gunk. And let's see if I can get the questions down. I might, Virgil, I see you've asked another question, but I'm just going to move on because I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to answer the questions, have a question answered. So,
Rachel, there's several questions about older kids. So maybe if you could address those questions, you know, just kind of address setting limits with older kids in general.
Okay. All right, I might wait until I get to one of them and do it from there. Okay. So Josiah says, and Josiah and James, I have used these listening strategies with my kids since they were 2, but now that they are, here we go, here's an older one. Now that they are older, I'm struggling more with them. All the examples have been toddler age. Can you give a few examples with older kids? Yeah, so here what I'm addressing is children under the age of 10. It actually works the same with older kids. It works exactly the same with older kids. So let me see. So kind of the listen, limit, listen thing. I'm just trying to have an example come to my mind. So, okay, I can give you an example from my family. Just the other day, my 10-year-old has a thing where he loves listening to audiobooks. Like, he loves stories and he loves listening to audiobooks, and it had been getting kind of too much. Like, there was too much listening to audiobooks. And so I brought a limit, and I let him know that there were going to be no audiobooks that afternoon. And he was upset just at the idea of there being no audiobooks. And he went to get the iPad to listen to another audiobook. And I put my hand on the iPad and I said, no, love, there's no audiobooks this afternoon. And first of all, he was really upset and angry. And then he started to get into tears and he cried, and he had a really good cry. And once he came out the other side of that, he was then able to figure out something else to do. He went and found this stone that he'd found in our riverbed that was all covered in mud, and he picked up because it had crystals on it and he wanted to clean it. It had quartz crystals on it, and he found something else to do. So I just came in with a warm, loving limit. I said no. He had a big upset. He felt better, and his mind was thinking better again, and he was able to go and find something else to do. So it's really the same. It's really the same process. It's like, yeah, it's really the same. Okay, so we've got Natalie says, so when you set a limit and the reaction is very destructive, storming behavior, how do we enforce the idea of some kind of outbursts are not so acceptable if we are just sort of being present for them as part of listening step 3? Okay, so what I want to emphasize with this is that it's really important to be building the connection piece alongside setting those limits like that. It's really important to have those 2 bits in place. And then when you get to the step 3 of the listen process, sometimes that is what happens. Sometimes a child is really, really angry, like they are digging into a lot of fear. When a child is angry like that, there's a lot of fear coming up. So it's not so much about it. You need to keep them safe, and you need to stop them doing things that would damage something, or hurt someone. That's very important. But if like this is emotional release, and you just contain the space and keep things safe. And over time, what will happen if your child currently goes to anger a lot, over time, as you pour in the connection and you listen, they will get to tears. Like they will get to the tears underneath that really angry reaction. So it's kind of harder when a child's raging, but it's still important to hold space and listen to them. Their mind is getting rid of all that gunk, all that yuck, and they still need you to hold space for it. And there are tears underneath. What have we got next? That was Natalie. Okay, next we've got Kate. Oh, hang on, I've just lost it a sec. I've been having challenges with my 7-year-old responding to basic requests like brushing teeth and getting dressed. It often takes multiple requests, escalating to frustration. What does setting limit look like in this scenario? Yep. So those are great. So again, like reach in, do regular special time to kind of build the warmth and get the kind of general connection piece going. And then those are wonderful scenarios for being playful. So for both brushing teeth and getting dressed, you can use the playful limit setting piece so well. So I'm just thinking with one of my boys when they were sort of resisting brushing teeth, and I would get the toothbrush and go, oh, Mr. Toothbrush wants to come and brush your teeth. And he'd go, no, I don't want him to. And then Mr. Toothbrush would be, well, I'm really unhappy. I want to brush those teeth. I love brushing your teeth. And we'd have this kind of playful thing where he got to be powerful saying no to the toothbrush. And he got to laugh because it was very funny having this like toothbrush talk to him in a silly voice. And we would play around with that. Sometimes that was enough to kind of top up his connection, and the laughter helped him release a bit of tension, and he'd brush his teeth. And sometimes it wasn't. And I would then shift gears, like I gave him the example, and just go, no, I need you to brush the teeth. And he might get upset and he might have a good cry, and eventually we'd get to the toothbrushing bit. Getting dressed is so much fun. You can do the playful thing. So the classic hand-in-hand thing would be to you get your child's I don't know, you get their trousers and you put their trousers on your head, or you get a sock and you put that sock on their hand, and they're just like, kind of, you've got it wrong. That's not right. And they get to laugh and they get to feel kind of like powerful because they know the right thing to do, and you've got it all wrong and you've been silly. So have a play around with that. Again, you can look for examples on our website. There are lots of examples about how to set limits playfully. Joanna, my daughter yells mean things, and so she's upset, like, you're stupid, you're bad, Oh no, it's gone again. How does that happen? It keeps moving. Let's find Joanna's question again. Oh, I think it's just vanished. I'm sorry, Joanna, I can't find that question again. Sarah says, what can I do when I'm not able to physically move to stop unwanted behavior or talk to my child? Sometimes I'm nursing the baby or otherwise occupied, so I end up setting the limit by talking from a distance. Yep. So Sarah, really what that speaks to is, there you are with your baby, you're nursing, you can't get up. I mean, it's sort of one of those challenging situations which really speaks to our lack of support. Like, this is about the context we find ourselves parenting in. Like, ideally, you'd have a couple of other adults around helping you. Like, it's really hard to be like nursing a baby and have an older child that's doing stuff that's not okay. So all you can do in that kind of scenario is your best. And if calling across the room is the best you can do, that's the best you can do, and that's okay. Another thing you can do is just step back from the situation and kind of anticipate. So when does this happen? Like, is it predictable that when you're nursing the baby, your other child will do, or your other children will do difficult things? And if so, maybe there's some proactive stuff you could do. Like, maybe before you sit down to nurse the baby, you could do some special time, or you could do some rough and tumble play to top up their sense of connection, so that they're going to be able to last a little bit longer while you nurse the baby. And I totally remember like kind of walking around with nursing one of my babies and having to sort of physically set limits. And so you just might get into this really messy kind of situation, and you just do your best. Like, that's all you can do is your best. And every time you listen and clear out the kind of swamp of yucking feelings, you're helping your child go longer and be able to, manage those situations when you're not as available for longer. All right, Catherine has a question. So many of the examples of tools effective from very young children, and I have an 8-year-old, so I think it's harder to use the tools working. Like, it absolutely still works with 8-year-olds. So it may be like, two things I'd get you to think about there is like, is there a need for like reaching in with more connection? Do you need to do more rough and tumble play? Do you need to do more special time? Like, is that the place where it's getting stuck? And then how are you feeling? Like, how we are makes a huge impact on our child and how well the tools go. So do you have a listening partner? Are you able to offload the frustrations you have? And 8-year-olds, like at 8, there is a real kind of change in children. There's a sort of hormonal surge. You are likely to be seeing like more difficult and challenging behavior at that age. So it could just be that you've kind of come to a stage where that's going on, and you're that's part of the picture of what's going on. The tools definitely still work with 8-year-olds. Like, keep reaching in. Okay, after setting limits and approaching with warmth, this is Rob, what to do if child does not offload emotions and walks away, or what to do if my child lashes out and begins hitting me? Yep. So if that's what's happening, and they're not offloading the emotions right away, that's a clue that you need to do the kind of like, so sometimes using these tools are a quick fix in the moment, but mostly what they're about is a long haul game. It's like you reach in with the listening tools over the long haul. And when a child's really tight like that, it's a clue to reach in more, to up the special time, to do rough and tumble play, because they are holding something inside that requires sort of extra levels of safety and connection to be able to clear out those gunky feelings. So that's what I'd recommend. Like, it's sort of like the bigger picture of what's going on. Cynthia, our life is perpetually a bit stressful with no daycare, no family nearby. Oh, yeah, both working. You guys have a really full plate. I can see that. And I've lost the question. It keeps moving. Here we go. I've got it again, Cynthia. I try to give the child the time he needs, but he needs at least an hour to play with me at a time. Well, he needs less of my partner, maybe 20 minutes max. I can't give that much every time, every day. It creates stressful and emotional drain on me. How can I do this more compassionately with limits for me and him? Yeah, great question, Cynthia. And I'm so sorry you find yourself in that parenting situation where you are stressed. And I would really encourage you to get listening time, to find a listening partner where you can offload all the frustrations that you feel around that, where you can get clear with yourself about how much time you can offer your son, and you can only give what you can give. So you get to figure that out, but to really offload what's coming up for you emotionally can make a huge difference. Because if we're feeling stressed like that and we're going to play with our child and we're feeling frustrated because it's like, yeah, I know he needs an hour and I just can't give it, it's really hard to sort of be with them in a way that it's sort of, that's hard. And it's also okay to hold that limit. Like, I'm sorry, I can't play with you any longer. That's all I've got. And that in itself can give a child an opportunity to offload the feelings that they have about that, which can make things go better. Margie says, any suggestions for how to recognize and identify which of the 3 common reasons children don't listen is the one which applies to you in the moment? So you can guess, you can have a good guess. I would recommend you work with all 3. That's what you need to do. You need to work with the concept that you need that connection in place, and you really need that connection in place to be able to help your child offload and process the feelings. And one way you can know is if you move in with connection, and so you come in playfully, and then your child is able to cooperate. That's a really good information to you that your child just needed a top up of connection. So that's like one way. And if you move in with a lot of warmth and love, and that might just be enough connection anyway for a child to cooperate. So you can have a guess and you can play around with it, and ultimately it doesn't matter because all of them are at play. Like if you're feeling tense, like, sometimes we don't even realize we're feeling tense. Like, it takes a little bit of us like noticing how we're being to realize that that's what we're bringing. So I would just play around with all 3 of them. Like, that's what matters the most, is using all those ideas. And I noticed we're at time, so I can stay on a little bit, Kathy, but I'll just do a wrap up now for those that need to leave the call. And so thank you so much for being here. I really hope you've managed to take away some useful information. And my kind of key takeaways for you is that your child doesn't listen because they feel disconnected, and or they hold emotional stress, and or we hold emotional stress ourselves. Have a go at using the listen method for setting limits so that your child can offload that emotional tension and they can think well again. And then warm up your relationship with your child by using special time. And do think about finding a listening partner so that you can feel more supported in your work as a parent and you can offload your own emotional stress. It's a real pleasure being with you. If you want to contact me, you can do so at Rachel, RACHEL, at handinhandparenting.org, or via my instructor bio on the Hand in Hand website. And I really hope you've enjoyed this webinar. If you want more support on this, you can access our self-guided class on setting limits, which dives into this much more deeply than I have done today. But I would also recommend you join our parent club, because it is the best place that you can get personalized support and advice. And you also get that setting limits self-guided class as part of joining the parent club. Kathy, would you like to say more about the parent club? Kathy is one of the mentors in the parent club. So what have you got coming up this month, Kathy?
Oh, I'm muted. Thank you so much, Rachel, for an awesome, just powerful overview of getting your kids to cooperate. So actually in the parent club, we are focusing on setting limits this month. And every week in the parent club, you get an instructional email. So, for example, Rachel talked very briefly about play listening, about, bringing a playful limit. Well, this week, that's what we're focused on in the parent club. Like that's your instructional email. Every week you get a support call in the parent club. You actually get free access to our Setting Limits course as part of your membership. And I think what really makes the parent club so beneficial and what so many parents love about it is the kind of individual attention you get. So, you know, in this 1 hour webinar, Rachel's giving you some very general ideas. When you come to the parent club and you join our private discussion group, you post a question and our answers are very specific. It's like you get like a consultation. It's very specific to your family and your kids and the ages of your kids. We also we connect parents with listening partners based on your schedule. So you kind of get that concierge effect. So yeah, you know, these tools are Rachel's done a wonderful job of giving you an overview, and then you might be like, now what do I do? So we hold your hand in the parent club, really helping you be the parent you want to be, implement these tools, and there will be a follow-up email that will give you the information, and I also pop the link in the chat. And thanks, Rachel. If you want to.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, and I just cannot over recommend the parent club. It is amazing value for money for what parents get. I just think it's incredible. Yeah, it's so good. So I really encourage parents here to sign up. Okay, so thank you so much for being with us. And I can stay on a little bit longer, but we have heaps and heaps of questions. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to all of them, but I will have a go at some more. And thank you, Kathy, so much for answering at the back end as well.
And you can come get your question answered in the parent club.
Yes, that's it. If we don't get to you, or if I've just given you a very brief answer, do go to the parent club where you get live calls that you can be on, not like this, like actual conversation live calls where you can ask and have a conversation about your question, and also experience listening time with a skilled listener with one of our mentors and instructors. And you also get online via Facebook, or if you're not on Facebook, there's another platform that you can use to just get that personal detailed answer. But I will keep going and do some more kind of brief answers to people's questions. Okay, Fizza has, I'm very tired in the evenings before bedtime and my children seem the most active at that time. How do I get it to sleep without losing my mind? Oh yeah, isn't that just the hardest? Just as we're feeling exhausted and our kids' emotional tension kind of expands, and there's that hyperactivity, and which is sort of a lot of emotional stuff going on. So I would really first and foremost encourage you to think about getting emotional support for yourself. So listening partnership is a great place to do that, so that you can figure out how you can be more resourceful. So if you can offload some of your emotional tension, you are more likely to be able to figure out what you can do in the evening. Something that can really help kids before bedtime is if you can pull it out the bag to do some rough and tumble play. Even if you only manage this once a week to start with or something, that can really help. Do some rough and tumble play before bed can really help kids get through the whole bedtime routine a bit better, and it can help them actually relax. So if you do it before your bedtime routine, it'll help them offload some of the emotional tension, and it'll help them feel closer to you. But mostly I just really encourage you to get some emotional support for yourself so that you're more able to get through that evening, that really tricky evening part of the day. Ashley says, how to handle an older sibling hurting a younger one? Yeah, great question. So I would take this on as a big emotional project. This isn't made up of lots of little situations. This is an ongoing situation where you need to kind of shift the dynamic between your children. So I would recommend doing special time with each of your children so that it's what happens with siblings is, if you're not feeling so good, your sibling is a really good dumping down ground for your yucky feelings, because you love them, they love you, they're little, they're not going anywhere, they're just a really safe dumping ground for your yucky stuff. And that tends to be part of what's going on when there's sibling tension. So you can see it as a little flag that your child's waving, like, I need help, mum. I'm like not feeling that great. I'd recommend starting off with special time for each of your child, and then moving in with the limit, like kind of whenever you can, like anticipate, when does this happen most? When do I need to be around? Like, how long can I leave them in a room together alone before they will start to fight? And just be realistic about that. Like, as parents, we're endlessly hopeful that the thing that happens isn't going to happen, and it's way more helpful when we're trying to shift patterns to just be realistic about what does happen, so that so have a scan, when does this happen, so that you can predict it, and start off by doing regular special time with both your kids, just to kind of ease the tension. Okay, so Kathy asked about how do I deal with resistance to connecting time. Her kids are teen. Too late? No, it's not too late. It's not too late. But if you're new to these ideas, with your teen, you probably will be best off doing unannounced special time. So you don't need to you don't need to do that naming bit. That's really important for younger children. But for your teenager, you could just, when is a time of day that you're currently together, like, and think of that as special time. So you can think about, so maybe there are times that a really good time is if when you're in the car together, you can have a like no phones rule in the car, and you can drive and just think about, there's something about being sat next to each other, not making direct eye contact, that can kind of allow a teen to sort of just relax a little bit and open up. And you don't have to insist on conversation. You might kind of try a little bit, but you're just there together. You often, just before bed is a very good time to have connection with the child. Like, maybe you can get into a habit of kind of doing back rubs before they go to sleep. If they go to bed after you, which my teen does, which is, I can't stay up anymore to do back rubs. Like, I've got into giving him little foot massage just, before I go to bed, and it can be a very sweet time to like just connect. And then another thing you can do, I'm thinking of a mom I know that she introduced special time with her teen, and instead of calling it special time, she kind of got in, like, he liked to do things that were a little bit naughty, and she was like, hey, I was thinking on Friday I could get out of work early and I could pick you up from school and we could go surfing together. What do you reckon? And it was this kind of sneaky, let's sneak off and do something together, that was her way in. And she picked something that she knew he liked doing. So you're just going to have to kind of find your way in. Or another way, another mum I'm thinking of that introduced special time with her teenage daughter, who was 15 at the time, she just would have Saturday morning, was like, we're going to hang out together Saturday morning. I'll do whatever it is you want to do. What do you want to do? So there wasn't a timer. She didn't name it. And her daughter wanted to go to a cafe and like hang out with her mom, and so that's what they did. So you're just going to have to think, what's the way in? Like, try and think with your child, like, what's going to work best. Okay, Becky says, we're going through a phase where my 10-year-old daughter feels like we always take my son's side. She's older and often picks on him, so we aren't so much taking sides as taking the side of the rules, respecting consent, etc. How do we help her while holding the limit of not picking on my son? Okay, great question. Yeah, so I think one thing that's really, so my immediate thing of what I would do in that situation is try and come in at this sideways. Like, so she already knows those rules. She already knows what she's doing isn't okay. Like, she knows it's not okay to pick on her younger brother. She knows it's not okay to do the things where she's breaking the rules. So she doesn't really need reminding about that. Take a kind of new look at this. Look at this as, when she's doing this, she's feeling rotten and she's picking on her sibling. Well, like I talked about earlier, that's what she's doing. It's a cry for help. It's like, I feel yucky inside. I feel disconnected. Please help. And you could come in with what we call a vigorous snuggle. You could just come in, like she does something, a little bit like the story I was saying with the dog, like come in and go, that must mean you need a raspberry on the belly. That must mean you need me to turn you upside down, throw you on the bed. Just come in with, or that must mean you need a pillow fight. Like come in with connection. Like it's like she knows it's not okay to do that. And you don't even kind of need to go over that too much. What she needs is a chance to feel connected and a chance to offload the feelings. If you come in with that kind of physical connection piece, you're going to be at a cellular level letting her know that she's loved and lovable and that she's good. I find pillow fights and kind of play wrestling in those moments can be a really good way for a child that's got that kind of tension going on, to offload it. So try that, try kind of coming in with that, start doing regular special time if you're not already. Like it's not so much about teaching her that what she's doing wrong, it's about meeting the emotional need that she's signaling to you. Hope that helps. Oh, some people, thank you everyone for telling me the ages of your kids that I was probably wondering about earlier. Okay, Sakina has, how do I get ahead in filling your young emotional cups? They keep tipping each other's cups, fighting and picking on each other. I feel like I'm always doing damage control. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful description, like of them tipping each other's cups. Yeah, cups. Yeah, that's really, really hard. Like, so I'm not sure how old your kids are, but if that's what's happening, it's a sign of this like long haul game, like to doing this like emotional project piece of, we can't keep our kids' emotional cups always topped up, and we can't keep our kids free from hurts. Like like those things are important. Disconnection's inevitable, hurts are inevitable. Like it's not about stopping. It's like we can't avoid that. What we can do, you can get ahead with special time. Like special time is the most powerful way to top up your child's connection cup. It really is. So that's, I guess, to answer your question, I would say special time and listening time for you, like listening time for you, so that you're feeling resourced enough to reach in with the limits when they're needed. So have a go with that. Like try doing special time regularly and get listening time for yourself. Janine, when I try to set limits, my 1.5-year-old becomes very aggressive and hitting and biting, and himself if he cannot bite me, and kicking, particularly when I say no or try to change his diaper. What is the best way to handle this? Yep. So that the best way to handle that is to, again, anchor him. Like that's a fear response. That's a child working on fear. When that kind of rage comes up, you need to keep yourself safe. You need to protect him. You need to stop him biting himself. Like, so you just kind of go, no, I'm not going to let you bite yourself. I'm not going to let you hurt me. Sometimes it's good to get some cushions or pillows to protect yourself so that you're not getting hurt. You just do your best. Sometimes you might kind of get so that you're sort of behind your child and your child's just in front of you, so it's harder for them to hurt you whilst they're raging. Like they might be sat on your lap and kind of raging, and just go slowly. Just like when it gets to that point when you're like wanting to change his diaper and he's saying no, and you just stay there. He's like getting angry. That's okay. This is the rage. This is the fear coming out. It's going to take a little bit of time to change his diaper. It's not going to be a quick thing, and you listen for him as long as it takes, and you hold that diaper. Yeah, I need to change the diaper. We need to put it on. And he's getting angry and cross, and you just anchor him all the way through, and he will come out the other side in better shape, and he is likely to start accessing the tears that are underneath that rage. And when you've got to those tears, that's really great. That's like flooding out what's the core of what's going on. So have a go with that. I can see Kathy's typing something there. Thank you, Kathy. Oh, great. There's an answer there from Kathy. Okay, Stacy says, I am a grandparent helping to care for a grandchild when I'm caring from his parents are not present, he can be very volatile. Your recommendations sound more like for younger children. Do they work for children as old as 10? Yes, they can absolutely work for 10-year-olds. Absolutely. So please go ahead and do that. Yeah, have a go with all those ideas. They absolutely work. All right, Kathy, I'm kind of at time of how long I can stay. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Kathy, for picking up answers to questions that I haven't been able to get to. I'm so sorry if I've not been able to get to your question. Thank you so much for asking it. And please consider bringing your question, joining our parent club and bringing your question to the parent club where you can get it answered. Kathy, is there anything you want to say?
Just thank you, Rachel. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys.
And thank you to all the wonderful parents who were here this evening. And we hope we see you in the parent club.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.